Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can color grade and composite your renders inside of Blender and also with some other tools. So here are some examples in the background of my composites that I make, and in this video I'm going to teach you the exact same workflow I use to composite these images you're seeing right now. All the tools that I'm going to be using are free to use and the links will be in the description. I'll start off by making a little scene that we can then composite and color grade. Set up a sky texture and remove this transparent. So I like to use a sky texture for my renders because I think that gives the most realistic result. If I now set up my camera right here, the first step is your compositing basically inside of Blender. And I think of depth of field of kind of a composite inside of Blender. So you can add this depth of field and it will already add a little bit of realism. You can also add some fog by adding a big cube and getting a scatter volume, scatter node, and putting it into the volume, and then change the density to not too much density, but also not too low, of course. But you can also use the mist pass, which we are going to be using today. So I'm going to delete this cube. So instead of volumetric fog, I want to use my mist pass. Now you want to enable the mist pass, so Blender won't give you all the passes by default, you have to enable them, and I want this mist pass. And this mist pass tells you how far something is from the camera, and you can preview this mist pass in your render passes. So right now it's combining every single pass, and you only want to look at the mist pass. Now you can see the gradient, basically white is far away and black is close, and you can change how this looks in the world settings. So change the start, which I want to be here, and change the depth, which I want to be something like a bit far. Because if you can see the difference in mist, that means this woman is massive. So just a little bit of mist will be okay. Now change it back to combined, and I think we're ready to render. Just one last thing is probably like changing this a little bit to a bit more of an interesting look. Make sure that you like the thing you're rendering, and then we can render. So that's basically all we gotta do inside of the viewport. That is depth of field, mist pass or fog, and the lighting. That's all what I see as compositing kinda important for compositing. Now we've got our render result. You can click on this and type in render result, and you have your render result. Now we can go into color management. So this is basically the first step of color grading, and this can be done inside of Blender, and it will give you the most value because Blender has the most amount of data on this image. The first thing you can do is change the look. So you can do this afterwards too in your color grading tool, but I think it's most valuable inside of Blender. I like to see how very high contrast looks because that gives the most amount of contrast. And once I've put it on, I don't want to look at none ever again. So most of the times it looks really nice. You can see the colors are just a bit more like there. Changing the exposure and the gamma can also give some nice results. So I like to lower the exposure a bit when I'm using a bright sky texture. Look at the gamma to counteract if you want a bit more light or not. Something like this is probably good. Next step, of course, will be the compositing. So right now you have a basic image that you can be happy with. Maybe you already did all these things and then you just think, ah, it looks good, I'm done. But in compositing you can get a lot more value out of your render. And compositing will first look like this because you're not using nodes and you want to enable the backdrop. So what the backdrop does is when I now hit Ctrl Shift on the render layer, then I'll view the image. You can also view the alpha, the mist or the noisy image. And we want to view the image. Now make sure that you have the node wrangler enabled, because now I can shift right click, hold right click and combine these two together. So if we add any compositing stuff right here, it will go for both the compositor, which is the final render, and both the viewer node. So both will be influenced by our composite. Press V to zoom out, Alt V to zoom in, and you can also hold Alt and middle mouse button to move this image around. I wouldn't move it around if I was you, but you can zoom in and out to get the full shot. Now the nodes I'm gonna be adding are pretty much always the same. I always use the same nodes, which is a lens distortion node, which will do just that, distort the lens in two different ways, and you can do different types. So I most of the times use two of these because I want to get two different types together. I also want to add a filter, which is the glare node, and it is possible that we're going to be using two of them. Now the mist pass and the noise image, we will look at that later. We're first going to use these. First let's look at the lens distortion. So I'm gonna put it right here so that it goes both in composite and viewer layer. I'm gonna set these to the side for now, like that. And when I enable projector, nothing happens because this is the type, the mode that I'm going to be using, and I want the dispersion in my render. So when I set the dispersion to a very high value, you'll get a lot of dispersion. I can't explain you in detail what dispersion exactly is, but pretty much any camera has it. Now we want to set this dispersion to a low value, like 0.1. It will be there, so when I get this and hit mute and zoom in, zoom in, it's very subtle, maybe a bit too subtle. 0.2 could also work, but maybe it's a bit too much. So it is good that you don't see it, because you will feel it. You will feel the difference in dispersion, even though you don't see it, you will feel it. Okay, let's get the other lens distortion, because I also want to use a fit mode and then distort the image while it still fits the format by 0.01. Now it has just a little bit of a distort to it. The jitter will basically add some weird film grain-ish. I don't like using that, so I'm just gonna keep it like this. Okay, so we got a little bit of lens distortion from both the distortion and dispersion. If we now look at the difference, you can see that there is a little bit of difference, and I like it more like this. Second note, glare. You can keep it on streaks, so now you will get streaks on the points that are bright, and it will get the points that will get streaks in real life as well. And you can look if you like it, ramp up the threshold maybe to 4, and then only some spots will have it. Color mode, you can increase it a bit, probably lower, get a higher glare. This will take more time, but it will be more accurate and you can get more iterations. It will also take more time, but it will be a bit more, look a bit better. Doesn't really make a lot of difference. Change the fade so that it's not so obvious until you get something you like. I just don't like streaks, but all these settings will stay if I change it to fog glow, for example, and this is a bit more what I like. So if I hit N while it's selected, I can mute the node and you can see how much of a difference this makes, and this looks much better than this, I would say. This has a lot more realistic feel to it. Now we can use another glare node, and you can see you get both of the effects, and use that as ghost. So ghost will basically get that big lens flare that you maybe know. You can also look at simple star, we haven't looked at that yet, but I just don't like it, I never use it. So ghost, threshold, probably something like 5, and set this to high. A bit more iterations, and play around with the color mode. That's more. Why is it not showing less? Mix it a bit less. Something like a very low value, so the ghost is not really that visible. You know, you get that little bit of ghost. If we now remove the ghost, you can see the difference. And most of the times when I see it removed, I want to get it back as soon as possible. You can change around these values. You can see you get this little bit of things right here. That's also from the ghost. I don't know, I just think this is really nice, and if you don't like it, don't use it. Now, this already really improved our render. So when we look at what we had at the start, this is what we had on the start, and this is what we have right now. This looks a lot more realistic, I would say. You know, this feels a bit disconnected from the massive light that's coming in. So looks pretty nice, pretty realistic, but we also have this fog and noise image. So we want to use the mist before we do anything else, because then it will be included in everything we do. We're going to mix it in. Instead of mix, we want to add it. So if you look at the mist, if you add black value, black basically means 0. Darker values are lower, or darker is lower value, and brighter, so white, is a higher value. So this is going to be like 0.5, and it's going to add 0.5 to our image on those places, and it will add nothing where it's black, because that has a value of 0. So 0 plus something will stay the same, and this will be added. So we can add the mist right there, and then look at the result. Okay, so we can see that the mist has been added in the background. Let's mute this. You can see the mist. But maybe you want the mist to be farther away. You can control the placement of the mist. So basically this right now is the darkest value, and this is the whitest value. And you can see that it goes from dark to white, just like it's doing here. So you get dark, to white. And you can change that so that the darker comes closer to the white, or that you can change this and that the white spots will be less white. So now less will be added. And another thing is, oh, okay, I don't know what I just did, but nothing happened, is to normalize this mist. And I have no clue why, people just do it. Then we can go back and look how it looks. See how it looks. Let's mute this again. Wait, mute this, I mean mute. I don't know if I like it. If you think, oh, where did my thing go, then it's good. So maybe a bit more like this, and ease will help. A bit less. Something like that, I guess. I don't know. This is just guessing work for me. I think it looks good. I'm just gonna keep it. Now we also have this noisy image, so we want to add the noise after the fork so that it gets added over. No. We want to add it before the fork, sorry, before the mist. So get the another mix node and mix. This is the image. Okay, wait. So now we want to add in the noisy image again. Get a bit of that noise back. That makes it realistic as well. So this is our image right now. So before anything happens to our image, we want to add back in some noise. So we're gonna mix our noisy image. And then you can see that the noise is very minimal. There's not a lot of noise in this image. Oh, you can see some here. So let's set this to 0.2. I mostly set it to 0.2. And you can see that it disappears a lot. I don't know if I like it in this image. In some images it's more apparent and better, and in some it's not. And that's for every single node of these. So you always have to see and look if it looks better or not. Now I think this is pretty good. So let's image, save as, and I wanna get... Okay, now that I have a place to save my image, I always call it whatever, so woman 0.1. So I know this is my first attempt. Okay, and I also want to get the without anything added to it. So let's go back to the normal image and save that as well. That will be the regular. I'm not English, so I don't know how to spell. Okay, so I found them, and this is regular, and this is with the composite over it. So in my opinion it looks a lot more realistic, but it's a bit intense. But the real photos can be intense like that. And what you want to do to a real photo when it's intense like that is edit it. So we're gonna get our what's it called? We're gonna adjust. So we're gonna color. So we're gonna adjust the colors. You can do this either within Windows like I do, so built-in color adjustments, or use this website. So you can click edit image when you've clicked on an image. My files where you edit it, click on your image, go to edit image, and you get your basic adjustments tools, which will be the same as I use, and you have some other cool tools as well. And here you can add vignette in the filters. So that's basically what I'm going to be using. So first I always want to adjust my image to the thing I want to show, and that's basically only this part. Now adjust it, and when I adjust it, I just look what looks good. But I know that most of the times doing something to the contrast will have a big effect, and you can look lower contrast could be nice, higher contrast it's not so nice probably, and changing the highlights it's not really going to work, giving it more shadows probably not, changing where the light, like this is your light, make the light more intense, brighter image overall not gonna work, getting this more saturated or less saturated, I don't know, I like it like this, more warmth, colder. It's a warm image, but it's okay like this. You can change the tint. This looks pretty good, pretty nice. But I guess nothing has to happen to this image. So you basically want to get the nicest image before you're going to add a filter to it. And this filter is really going to make it look a lot more realistic, because these are filters you can add over your real images. Let's see which one looks best. And you can compare it to the real render by adjusting this slider. And you can of course then decrease the effect too on the same thing. I like this one, I think. So let's see how much I want it to be added. Just a little. So I went from this to this with simple adjustments, which is pretty cool, I think. This is way more interesting than what we had here. The ghost adds a lot, so we can look how it looks just with only not choosing the ghost. So instead of ghost, I'll just not use the ghost like that. So like this, you can see how much it changed. I just like it on this render. I think it looks really good. You can still play around with the threshold, you know, get it a lot higher, but then it will look weird. Yeah, I think it looks good. So you can do this to any render and you get very different results with the glare nodes especially. And you can use this one for more depth in your image and to better show the scale. This one will bring back some noise, gets a bit more realism in it, and noise can also be detail. These two give just realism, and the glare nodes are just there for extra realism if needed. Sometimes you don't want to use these, and then afterwards you want to crop it to make it interesting, and then color adjust it and add a filter once you have your thing you're happy with. Now you can also use this Topaz Studio afterwards to give even more, so we got 1.2, and we can add a look to it in Topaz Studio. Just scroll around, because these are some very interesting results, black and white like this, maybe something like that. And that's just to make your render even more interesting. So remember how quick I set up this render, and this looks pretty good and realistic in my eyes. You can make a lot of interesting things with this. And I'll put the link to both this website and to Topaz in the description. Topaz is free as well. Cosmic, it looks really bad. I want to see if I can get something nice. This doesn't fit the image. This doesn't fit it as well. This is pretty bad as well. Dreamy day. Don't like it. Is there nothing interesting that I can use? Jesus. Crunch and light. Okay, so for example, let's say, or happy little tree. I don't see any difference. Heavy metal. Ooh. In pastel. Okay, let's do this one. I don't like it. Not mountain. Okay, so if you apply it, you get everything that has been adjusted to this image to get this result, and you can change everything about it or see how it looks without it. For example, the blur, you can change the strength of the blur, remove it, even add like a mask, so some points will be blurred and some points won't. And yeah, you can hide it, and you can click on the image to see original and new one. And you can add some different filters yourself. So for example, AI Clear will improve the image by using an AI. I think that looks pretty good. And you can see the fog, looks pretty good. Yeah, I think this is an improvement. And you can add some more filters if you like. So, oh yeah, this one, right, impression. So you can make it painted, high. So now it's high quality painting. It doesn't work on this one. A little bit of paint. I don't like it. Let's get rid of this, like that. And then you get your image, file, export, and where does it go? Yeah, save it. And then you get your 1.1.2 studio, and that's then your final image. So we went from this to this to this, which is pretty cool. This is something you could maybe post on Instagram, and this is something that you won't really post on Instagram because it's just a human model, and this one looks pretty cool. Could be a real photo if you just made the interesting background and stuff. So that's basically everything I do to composite and color grade my renders. So I first do everything within the 3D viewport. Depth of field, mist pass, nice lighting. Then I render my image, change the color management settings, then go to compositing, add my glare nodes, lens distortion nodes, mix in some noise, and get the mist pass in there, or add volumetric to the scene, and then color adjust the render just based on feels, and then go to Topaz to finish it off. Thanks for watching, I hope that helped, and I'll see you maybe next time. Bye!